Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us for this edition of SBB University, where we are discussing memories that matter. This is a talk about Alzheimer's, dementia, and clinical trials. So very excited to bring on this dynamic group of ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start in our left-hand corner with some introductions. We have Mr. Robert Starke and Dr. B with the Neuropsychiatric Research Center. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, tell me a little bit about yourselves and what brought you into the field of research, clinical research.
Well, I am a board certified psychiatrist, and I was the 36th person in the country to be certified in geriatric psychiatry. Like they say that anyone who is board certified general psychiatrist and he comes to Florida, he automatically becomes geriatric psychiatrist. So that's how it goes. So anyway, that was 1991. So I was 36th person, and rest was just evolution. You evolve. And so I was the first one to bring the pivotal trial by Novartis to Venice, Florida. That's where my practice was. And in doing that, then I had a series of level 3, phase 3 trials, and that went on for almost, 20 years, in fact.
Wow.
And as a result, I became the national speaker for Novartis and the Forest. So I kind of gave talks on dementia to physicians from Tarrytown, New York, all the way to Seattle,
Wow.
and in between, from Oklahoma, Georgia, Alabama, all over Florida. Something I started to like it, even though I had social anxiety in the beginning. But once you love something, it comes out spontaneously. I was recruited to go to University of Western Ontario in 2016, and I retired from there, came back in July of 2019. I did some clinical trials at the Meridian Clinical Trial Company in Bradenton, but they decided to move on to Brandon, which was too far for me. So I restarted my clinical practice. And then Dr. Cutler, who's a great friend of mine, and he's the consultant to this outfit, and he basically recruited me here. So as a result, I'm in the process of moving to Florida. I'm signing off my house on 21st, and I got an little apartment from 9,000 square feet to 1,000 square feet. So
wow.
But I'm okay, because that was like hanging like an anchor in my neck. So having done that, so I came in December part-time, and then I think just about a month back, I became full-time employee. And basically my cup of tea is not only clinical trial, but as you know that I love to give talks on dementia.
Yes.
And that's what brings me here. Having gone to Canada for 4 or 5 years, it was kind of amazing to find how much has happened in this field.
Sure.
So when I left, it was only 4 different medications. Now we have 10 different medications which are coming down the pipe.
Wow. Well, they are very lucky to have you. We're going to come back around and ask you a few questions about some of those medications.
Yeah.
Next on the docket, we have Miss Catherine Cruikshank Eberle, who is with Restoration Senior Living, a new memory care community right in the heart of Naples. How are you this morning, Catherine?
I'm great, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome. Well, you've got a long history of stories that led you to being in this wonderful industry, some personal stories and a lot of history. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you to Restoration Senior Living.
Well, my career started over 25 years ago. I blame one person. That is my grandfather. He had Alzheimer's type dementia. And because of his situation, I did my master's degree in elder abuse and neglect focused on dementia, and my doctorate studies in the same field of dementia. And nearly 20 years ago, I had an opportunity to move down to Florida. And Florida is full of older people, and where there's older people, there is dementia. And one thing led to another. I was able to move here, and I've had a few changes in career here, but always in dementia. So when Restoration Senior Living was about to open, my boss, Colin Marshall, gave me a call and asked if I'd be interested in heading up the building. So that's how I came to be here.
Wonderful. Well, they're very lucky to have you. Welcome, and thank you so much for your partnership. Next on the docket, we have Miss Yvonne Lusetti, who is with Holistic In-Home Therapy. How are you this morning, Yvonne?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Nice to see all of you. Thank you so much for including me in this great panel.
Yes, you have a very unique direction that you go out with this, and I love hearing your talks. But tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you into this industry. What is your why? What brought you here?
Exactly. Thank you. So I am a physical therapist assistant for 35 years and personal trainer, and I specialize in neuro rehab and holistic therapy, energy type of work. I'm also a Reiki master, which I became in the last year and a half, which was perfect timing. And I just really started practicing the true connection between the mind and body for myself and my clients in the last 5 years. And I have to say, it has taken my professional skills to a whole nother level that traditional physical therapy doesn't really incorporate. So I really embrace an Eastern and a Western approach to providing support and personal training, mind-body awareness with my seniors. And in the last year and a half, of course, it's been very pivotal for all of us. And I really realized how it was not my physical therapy or personal training that has helped keep our seniors thriving, but it's been the life coaching, the holistic support, the holistic coaching that we all do with our clients. Really being present with our clients, our family members, our parents, and really helping to engage our seniors on a really, we all had the opportunity to downshift in this last year and a half, and that has really helped me be a better therapist, to really slow down and look our clients in the eyes and listen to what they have in their hearts. And they want to tell their stories, and their stories are diminishing and their cognition is diminishing if we don't engage them and we ask them those questions. So I really learned that in the last year and a half, we need to slow down and embrace each one of our residents and clients and ask the questions and open that dialogue.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's hard to slow down sometimes, but you're right. All right. Next up, we have Miss Amy Schenk with the Alzheimer's Association. How are you, Amy?
I'm great, Amanda. Thank you. And hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody again after a year of kind of being locked up with COVID.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the Alzheimer's Association.
And how did I get here? Well, actually, I started my career many years ago as a registered nurse in neurology, if you can believe it. And that was back in the days when we did all of the things that we know not to do now. So we did reality orientation, which is just another way to argue with someone with Alzheimer's and dementia. We used restraints, and we over-medicated people, which looking back now, I'm horrified, but that was the standard of practice. Yeah. So started my career as a registered nurse, never in a million years thought I would kind of come full circle. Did a number of things at kind of an executive level, different types of healthcare. Came down here 8 years ago and kind of branched into senior living. So learned a little bit more kind of baptism by fire, because it's a different industry until you've had the opportunity to be there. And then came to the association. And you know what, really, I look at it and I think, how did I end up here? But actually I have this random fact. So here's a random fact that I didn't even know. And Catherine, I didn't know this when we worked together. So this is my random fact. So you know what, I looked up, when was the association really established? So I knew it was in 1980. Okay, that's when I graduated from nursing school. It actually, the document that I found said it was started on April 10th of 1980. Well, that was my mother's birthday. So I just think there's some divine intervention there. So I've gone back to school to get my master's in public health. I'm also, again, unbelievably back in school again to get my master's in social work. So I think I just am that lifelong learner, and it's fun.
Yeah.
But having the opportunity, as we all do, to serve people with this disease and other dementias and their family members, I think that's really kind of what our connection point is, no matter where we are in the community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're right. And it's awesome that you're going back to school for your master's. Keep that train going. Knowledge is power. That's why we're all here today, is to talk about the different things that we can do, the different trials and drugs that are available, the communities that are available, the in-home treatments, etc. So thank you all for being here. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started with our couple rounds of questions. Dr. B, I'm going to start over with you. Now, the Biogen medication that you were telling me about, talk to me a little bit about that. I know that that's very new, and it's something that's very important that we need to get the word out about.
Yes, so the name of the drug is aducanumab. So basically what it is a humanized antibody. And as we call it, monoclonal antibody, because we will take the antibody from the primates or the subhuman mammals and tweak at the protein structure, make it look like the human antibody. IgG is the word, that's a protein. And these antibodies then get exposed to the toxin, to bacteria, to virus, and then they become the specific rifle bullet against that. So different, obviously, monoclonal antibodies have been developed because sometimes they are going after the fibril type of beta amyloid, the soluble type of beta amyloid, or sometimes different part of the beta amyloid, N-terminal or C-terminal. The time will come when I can show all that with a PowerPoint slide, which will be a lot easier to conceptualize. But nonetheless, so this aducanumab medicine is a monoclonal antibody, which is humanized, and it is specifically against the A-beta. As you also must know this thing, that now they have antibodies coming out, which has already, we have it, and we have clinical trials going on tau protein. So beta amyloid is the pathological bad peptide, or the big protein, which is degenerating type, which will start to eat up the brain tissue and cause inflammation. And it also leads to the production of tau protein, which is like beta amyloid on steroid. That's when really the atrophy of the brain starts to take place. So some of these trials, like the Pfizer's trial, Janssen's trial, and others, the problem is the results are not correlating well, the cognitive improvement. But the problem is this: if there is a person brought to the emergency room with a knife in his chest, and you take the knife out and you say, okay, get up and feel, I've removed the knife. It's not going to happen. So we have been treating the tombstone, not the patient. By the time MCI, mild cognitive impairment, starts, which is the pre-dementia, we call it, 90% of the brain is filled with the beta amyloid. So we have to catch these folks 10, 15 years earlier. Now that we have the blood test of the plasma beta amyloid.
And that's what's so wonderful about the clinical trials themselves. If somebody can come in, if they've tested, like genetically tested for having that gene, this is something that you can potentially keep them from developing it if it turns into that, right?
This is so there are things happening. Once it's like someone said, you create the Las Vegas and they will come, right? Same way once you create the treatment, there will be extreme need to catch the disease early. And now give it to the physician, which is going to happen because it was approved just a couple of days back.
Yeah.
Because then you can start to see if there is a full-time genetic loading, if there is a risk factors of injuries, or the vascular factors like chronic hypertension, arrhythmias and all that, these people are very high risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. It's like pressing the first domino, and then it starts to fall on its own. So I'm saying, once we have the disease in the physician's hand, you will see they will start to use it very early, where they suspect person is highly vulnerable to develop the Alzheimer's disease. And then obviously will come the test, biomarkers test.
That's perfect. Yeah. And we'll loop back around and you can talk about some of the advantages of clinical trials and how to get involved. Yvonne, I'm going to bounce down to you. Now, you have a really holistic approach when it comes to brain training and mindfulness. How does that come into helping somebody that's going through a process of cognitive decline? And what are some of the services that you provide that can help with that?
So two ways. We want to really be mindful and use intention and awareness of our thoughts, our mindset, and our thoughts. Our thoughts are really, really powerful on a neurological level, and our actions. So mindful, intentional, aware of our thoughts, our mindset, and our actions, our physical activities that we engage in. So we want to, for ourselves, always be really mindful of our mindsets and help our clients, be more mindful of their mindsets and help stimulate them with questions and environments to keep them kind of in a more positive zone mentally, and then provide the different environments for physical activity and stimulation. And of course, we know social interaction, and we know novelty is extremely brain stimulating. It's learning anything new on any level for any of us. I am as well going to school again myself, and we can't stop learning no matter where we're at professionally, and we have to think of our seniors. We can meet our seniors right where they're at. We can be a little creative and just provide them with the stimulation mentally or with activities. So we know neuroplasticity means that the brain can heal to a certain degree at any age, with any disability, when we provide it with the proper training and stimulation. And to me, that was when I started really learning about neuroplasticity. I know about neuro rehab for my whole career, but the fact that we can literally retrain the brain, even if we have a disability, is just so hopeful to me. And I apologize, I have a landscaper right behind me. I hope you guys can't hear that. Just really helping our seniors to stay focused on positive things, mindfulness. And I teach my clients, visualization, meditation, relaxation, breathing. So if we can calm the mind, relax the body, open that energy up, it's going to serve us on a whole body, mind, body, and spirit level, and our seniors.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, Catherine, we're going to bounce over to you. Now, you are in a community that is memory care only, and there's very few of those out there. And I think that it's a remarkable opportunity to talk about what type of specialty activities are in the memory care communities, and what type of environment is best for that cognitive decline.
Well, having a combination of activities is great, and we are seeking the right recreologist. So ideally not just a lifestyles person title, but a recreologist, someone who's studied activities and the senior population with dementia. Physical activities, social activities, anything involving music is great for brain stimulation. So we're looking for a great combination of things. We're going to be offering services for people at all levels of memory impairment, so mild right through to late stage. And how we're going to accomplish engaging people with that is we're going to have parallel programming. So we're not just going to have one activity or program going on at any given time. We're going to have 2 or 3 as our population grows. And they'll be designed for the level that is appropriate for the person, bringing in their life history. If they were in business, if they were teaching, if they were very sporty. So bringing in their past talents and interests and engaging them at their level with just a little bit of challenge to make it interesting, but not a negative challenge for them. We want it to be fun and engaging, not stressful and a constant test for them. Yeah. So around our building, we have multiple engagement rooms Some people call them program rooms, some people call them activity rooms, but we have them literally all around our building. And the majority of them are not that big. They're ideal for somewhere between 8 and maybe 15 people at the most, so that it can be small groups. People can engage in a non-overwhelming setting, socially engaged, but not challenged. The more people you have in an activity, the more noise there is, the more challenging it is for the leader of the group. They can't give one-on-one attention to each person. So we're going to design it to have small groups of people in each program. And so we also have 3 different courtyards. So people can be outside with care providers, with our lifestyles people, getting fresh air and sunshine. The people who designed our building also incorporated a lot of natural light. We have windows all over the place. So the hallways are very open and warm and welcoming, and they don't feel closed in. So even if we have a person who's wandering and anxious, the hallways are a relaxing area to be in.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And you mentioned music. What is the link between memory and music? Because it's a big thing right now that people are talking about or have been for many years.
Music is the only thing that will light up every lobe of your brain on a PET scan. Music will engage you emotionally, physically. It triggers every aspect of our lives. The key to it, though, is to be music that person relates to.
Sure.
So I happen to like modern country. My husband does not. So that's not going to engage him. We both like traditional rock and roll, 50s, 60s, and also rock from the 80s and early 90s. Usually it's something with a beat. That'll engage a person, but mostly it's knowing what did a person listen to when they were younger, going back in their long-term memory that they can relate to.
I agree.
And I'm sure Yvonne can add quite a bit to this as well. But music is wonderful. Dancing, physical exercise. Ideally, every day we will have happy hour right before dinner to get people moving and grooving, dance, and get their energy level up in a positive way, and then introduce them to dinner time.
Mm-hmm. Is there alcohol at this happy hour?
No. We are a dry happy hour, but happy hour is happy hour.
Yes.
So to present it in an adult fashion, there'll be beverages, there'll be little snacks, as we would have at our own happy hour. But happy hour is a frame of mind with the activity.
I love it. And I knew that. I just wanted to clarify for the audience. All right, we have Miss Amy coming up next. Amy, talk to me a little bit about the Alzheimer's Association. What types of services that you guys provide?
Well, before I do that, I'd really like to acknowledge both Catherine and Yvonne, because the things that you talked about, and Catherine, in terms of, developing the memory care in a person-centered approach and making sure that it's unique to that individual, including that social engagement, all of those things are so important. So those are the type of things that no matter what setting you're in, but particularly if you're in a memory care community, you want to look for, because those are the things, those developing those relationships, having joy, as you said, Catherine, activities, but activities that are fun and not frustrating. And so with the approach with parallel programming, what's beautiful with that is that if I'm at a level where some of the things may be too complex, there will be something available that's similar but tailored to my needs. So those are a couple approaches, and I wanted to acknowledge both of you with that. The Alzheimer's Association provides a wide variety of services. When we're looking, we just came out of pretty much a crazy time with COVID-19. And so just like everyone else, we had to figure out, how are we going to do all of the things that we do in person and be able to meet our constituents' needs virtually? So we all know that that was a challenge. I think we've all learned some new things with virtual technology.
Whether we were
But what we were able to do, well, we had to, right? We all had to, and we've also learned how much fun it can be sometimes when it doesn't work. But what we were able to do in a very short period of time is convert our educational programming as well as our caregiver support groups to the virtual method. Mm-hmm. So all good things. There's always a downside to some of these things. We got great feedback. People said, oh, it's great that you're doing this, but you know what? I just can't necessarily come to a program at 9 in the morning, or you know what, this doesn't fit into my schedule. So it's great that you're doing it, but I just don't have time at the times when you have your program. So again, necessity is the mother of invention. And what we were able to do is to develop an entire online on-demand platform. Right. So what we did was we recorded all of our programs. We also have added a variety of different types of programs, because one of the things we learned is that there's so many things that are going on out there that caregivers are interested in, that people living with dementia are interested in. So we've kind of expanded our programming as well. But the good news is, if you're interested in seeing a program, anytime from the comfort of your bed, couch, lanai, you're able to do that with our online programming called ALZ Programs Anytime. And of course, that's at no cost to any of the participants. The other thing that we realized, and we've been very fortunate to work with the Department of Elder Affairs even more closely. And I think we all may have seen that, you know, one of the challenges that we have in senior living is our teams can never have enough training. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as our team members being overtrained. We know that it's an investment and an ongoing opportunity. So another thing that we were able to do, we actually previously had an online program called ALZ Connected. And it was an online kind of self-paced program. Well, what we were able to do is to kind of give that a facelift and really kind of revamp the program and make it more interactive, as well as, instead of it just being online, having virtual programming. And that program is available to individuals who are working with and serving individuals with Alzheimer's or dementia. It is another program that when one completes the 3 hours of curricula, and then there's an additional hour where we have people do some problem solving and apply their skills, they will have the ability to become certified if they pass the certification test. So again, this is something else that we realized, you know what? You can never know too much, and you can have worked in memory care, and I'm sure you've seen it too, Catherine. Even when you have experience, there's always some value in maybe learning or refreshing your skills. So that's been another huge area. And guess what? We're finally back out in the community. This is the first month that we have been able to get back to some of our educational programming in person. But the one thing is, we kind of look back and try to look at, okay, so what were the benefits of a situation that, quite frankly, had a significant impact on all of the people that we serve? And it was a really, really difficult time. What we've been able to do is to offer some virtual programming, but to draw from the entire state. So instead of just doing things locally, which again have great value, what we've been able to do is do programming with different topics and be able to offer it to individuals across the state. So, and we've kind of played around with some different types of content. So we have a program that's coming up June 19th, the day before Father's Day. So this was actually, we thought about that day. And I think we know sometimes that there are differences in caregiving between men and women. And I don't want to stereotype, but what we find is there's a different approach to caregiving. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to talk about the male perspective. So our program is called Ask the Experts, the Male Caregiving Experience. And we've pulled together some resources who are knowledgeable on topics, and they've also been caregivers. So we're really excited about that. That's 10:30 to 12:30, Saturday, the 19th of June. And it's been great because we've been able to access and work with other experts that we may not have known if we didn't have that kind of that statewide approach.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Amy. All right, Dr. B, we're back to you. Talk to us a little bit about the process of getting involved in a clinical trial and who would be a good candidate.
Well, so it depends upon what studies we are doing. Right now, the trend is that we are trying to get MCI or early dementia. And for the reason I mentioned before, because you don't want to wait to and see if there is no more brain tissue left to work with, then how will you see any improvement? So easiest thing would be, obviously, during the talks, Robert is with me, and then he will distribute all the information, how to get in touch with our center. We do provide a free evaluation, and even though people might have subjective complaints of memory problem, they may not have true dementia, but it's good to step forward that we are able to give you that test totally as a service to the community. And then your name can be in a database. In the event if you have any problem, we pick up the phone, we correlate, the findings with what you're saying that, and we'll offer then and there what kind of clinical trials we have. So we have like anti-tau, anti-beta, but newer types of new mechanisms which are coming out, which in fact, I didn't know anything about just a couple of years back. And this is very exciting that besides the immunotherapy, we're going to have new findings, which was just not there just a few years back. So there's a bright future, with this announcement of being first time, it's a breakthrough, even though there is a controversy about, whether it is really showing what it's supposed to see. But the whole thing is clinical trials are very rigid. We have to stick to the protocol. You give it to me as a physician. Clinically, I know I've done dementia since 1991, and I know where to start early, and get the maximum bang for the buck, so to speak, So call us and we'll arrange for the evaluation. If you are truly having problem, objectively, we can show that you have short-term memory problem, which is the commonest symptoms people experience first. Language is the other one, with that thingy that, they just substitute words,
So is that how you would qualify per se for the clinical trial? Is you need to have some short-term or long-term memory loss, and then
long-term is not the dementia. In the early stages of dementia, all short-term memory, which is based on hippocampus. Short-term memory means learning is gone. If there is no hippocampus, which is a memory shelf there, then how can you retain anything? Therefore, learning is start to go away. We all are losing 0.4% of the brain tissue just for aging. Alzheimer disease patients are losing after the age of 65, 0.4% every year. And Alzheimer disease folks are losing 6 times that much.
wow.
So the brain shrinks like this and learning goes away. Why the musical memory are retained? Because it's consolidated all over the brain. But the short-term memory is the hippocampus. And you can see in an Alzheimer disease patient, it is kind of atrophied. So no shelf, no files can be kept, no learning takes place.
Now, do you have to be a resident of Florida to participate with the Neuropsychic Research Center?
No, a lot of folks come from Michigan, Ohio, and all those places. And if once we enter the clinical trial, obviously we would like commitment. You don't get up and leave. Sometimes it does happen. Then we pick up the phone, call someone in Michigan, the clinical trial center, and then kind of, get them together.
That we coordinate.
Yes.
But also if I may add to what Dr. B said, the important thing is that you don't have to be pre-diagnosed to come here. So if somebody from the street that is concerned about their memory could get all these tests for free.
Right.
The thing about research is that we have unlimited resources to really go down and find out what is actually going on. And the beauty about it is also that 9 out of 10 people may not even qualify, or 6 out of 10 don't even have an Alzheimer's process. So we are kind of like the broker for the truth on your brain. And it can be as simple as an initial test, and sometimes it can be as detailed as the PET scan that will maybe either qualify you or disqualify you as being an Alzheimer's patient.
The correction on that, the PET scan is expensive, and we only can offer if you are appropriate for a certain study, But otherwise, if we feel there is a little problem, we have no study, we will communicate at the request of the participant back to the family physician, because then you have to see if Medicaid covers that or not. But if you're part of the study, you get the Cadillacs of all kind of different tests, which are usually not available. In fact, even the initial test, many of time physicians, they say, okay, we'll observe you, we are here to objectify this for you. And we'll just tell you, okay, no problems yet. You may have MCI. We'll see you again in 1 year. So that's where there is a follow-up. And because we know what we are dealing with, we are picking up early symptoms, and we also don't want to miss the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Yvonne, you do a lot with brain training, and I know that with the topic of today being memories matter, there was a segment that you wanted to present a little on. So let's take the next 2 to 3 minutes and let you talk about the memories matter segment that you had prepared.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you. Memory, we want to protect our memory, and then we want to protect our memories. And so we have different kinds of memories. And during the last 15 months, being fortunate enough to be one of the practitioners that was still able to go in and see my clients on a consistent, regular basis, which was just, such a blessing, because these seniors have been locked in with very limited intervention. I really realized how important it was to ask those questions and really help our clients to remember their stories, and then coach them to think about the details of those stories. So for example, I had a client right before the lockdown. It was her 90th birthday. She had just cards everywhere. And I finally decided we're going to organize these. And we went through we just finished, okay? So a year and a half later of organizing all kinds of cards and letters and treasures. And so we can help our seniors keep their memories alive I organize them in a little file, and we can, as practitioners or family members or caregivers, we can just, sit down and visit with these folks and go through a few of their cards or letters and have them talk and engage, and they can remember all those, we can keep their memories alive. I think it's really important for us to keep their memories alive, to ask the questions, to keep stimulating the different senses. What did it feel like? How did it sound? What did it smell like? Or do you remember, what family members were there? And then that's something we can do as a collective group for the wonderful, intimate social activities. And then we have different memories that we don't maybe want to remember. And so I do help. Right now, what I realized is our seniors have a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, and they want to be able to speak to somebody, and maybe not their family members.
Sure.
So they can confide in us, and we need to let them know HIPAA, we are so safe. We're the safest people you can talk to, because legally we can't share this information. And so I've become that confidant that they will tell me some of their fears. And then we can say, okay, let's take this memory. We can't change or delete the memory, but we can neutralize the emotions that go with memories. And we can say, okay, out of a crisis or a challenge, what can we learn from that memory that we can, or you can share with your other friends in this community? So what can you learn from that memory that could be a positive for yourself, and that you can share with your friends? So that's, those kind of sabotaging memories. We can try to help our seniors with their anxiety and some of their fears with some memories or beliefs that they don't quite understand. We can kind of coach them and direct them to focus more on something positive we can twist it into. And then memories that we're actually creating, they are creating right now, making that history. And we just want to keep them focused on creating positive habits of thought and activities, and protecting their cortical real estate.
Sure. And I think that's kind of where your, is it Reiki training, it seems, comes in.
Reiki.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, thank you for that, Yvonne. All right, Catherine, I know this is a difficult conversation that folks have with their family members. When is the time to consider a memory care community? When do you know that you should have that conversation?
There are two approaches to it. Most of the time, people are looking at the needs of the person affected by dementia. Mm-hmm. What do they need? The day-to-day caregiving. Are they staying awake all night and keeping the caregiver awake all night? Are they wandering? Are they having behaviors? Do they need more personal assistance in the bathroom or showering? What are their needs? And that is one way to look at it, because they do have needs. And if the caregiver can't meet those needs, that's a good time to think about looking at communities. One thing that often gets neglected is the caregiver's ability. How is the caregiver doing emotionally? How are they doing physically? Most caregivers, out of love or a sense of obligation, will caregive at home much longer than they should. That's safe for them and safe for their loved one. And as much as I agree, it's great to keep people at home if you're able to care safely for them and not neglect yourself. And that's the problem. Most caregivers self-neglect. They don't get to their doctor's appointments. They're not watching their blood pressure or diabetes properly. They're overwhelmed and they feel guilty about even thinking about placing their loved ones. So really, my answer to your question is, how are you doing as a caregiver? And chances are the first time you start to think about placing your loved one, even if you think it's too early, that's when you should at least take time to see what's available in your community as an option. And that's a very hard step for most family members.
It's so necessary, because if something happens to you, you need to have a backup plan.
If you go down in flames, what's the game plan? Because if you as a caregiver go down in flames, you do not have time to look around. If you fall and break your hip, if you have a heart attack, stroke, something happens to you as the caregiver, you throw out your back or pull a rotator cuff, you're not able to help your loved one in the shower, in the bathroom, just simply getting dressed, standing them up, or getting them in the car to go to their doctor's appointment. So if your physical and emotional well-being are starting to get sacrificed, that is when you should start looking and know what the options are, because you don't want an emergency. And if you take the time to go and look at places, let your family members, your adult children, know which places you looked at and what your favorite choices are, A, B, and C. Of course, I'd like to say Restoration Senior Living of Naples, but let your family know, I looked at these places and these are the ones I liked, and for what reason. It is okay to place your loved one on a waiting list if the place does have a waiting list. Though, don't worry if it says there are 10 people. Those numbers change daily, if not weekly. But it's good to go have a look around and check things out before you're in a crisis situation so that you can make an educated decision.
Yeah, I mean, an even more drastic scenario is that, what is it, 77% of caregivers pass before the person they're caring for. It's a drastic statistic, and you really need to have that plan in place. And as Catherine mentioned, you really need to communicate that plan with the rest of your family, because if something happens to you and you're no longer with us, you have to have a backup plan for your loved one that has that cognitive decline.
And most people worry about the spouse. So the scenario of the 75-year-old couple. I know many spouses who are in their 40s, or adult children in their 40s or 50s, who are caregiving, and because of the stress had skyrocketing blood pressure. They themselves experienced heart attacks, developed diabetes. So it's not always the older caregiver, it's the adult child caregiving too. So it's whoever the caregiver is has to look out for themselves.
Yeah, speaking of, I think we'll bounce back down to Amy. Now, as far as support groups and things that can really help make that decision, or help a loved one make that decision that that's the time. Talk to me about what some of your tricks and trades are, and what advice you have of what support groups are available through the Alzheimer's Association.
And before I touch on support groups, because you're right, that is a wonderful source of support. Catherine said the exact same thing I would say. When is it time to consider it? Usually when you're thinking about it, it's past time.
I was going to say, yeah.
It's safety for the individual living with the disease, and it's safety for the caregiver. And so many times, as you said, they don't think about themselves. They're very focused on the person who's living with the disease. And there can be some very, negative consequences. So the beauty of Plan B is know what's out there. Because I think one of the things that I experience, and I'm sure all of us experience, is that, top of mind awareness for caring for someone with Alzheimer's and dementia, it's not necessarily something that you seek out until you have to have it. And it can be a crisis situation. So many times people come to us and it is that crisis situation. So knowing what resources are available, knowing the difference between a memory care only community, assisted living, and memory care, there are a lot of different options, and there's a right option for your family member if you make that choice. And I think that's the most important thing. Hearing from someone else who understands what you're going through. Mm-hmm. Caregiver support groups really have that connection. So as much as all of us as professionals provide support and education and counseling, because we all do that, sometimes the individual caregiver gets the most out of hearing about somebody else's experience. Sure. And so that really can't be underestimated. So the good news is we are kind of rolling back out our in-person support groups. So that's great news. We've had the ability to do them both telephonically as well as Zoom. Again, not ideal, but also still being able to have the connection, which has been helpful. And I think the other thing and I always think about this, that sometimes we need to remember, is that when we talk about the word support group, mm-hmm. Now, what does that make you think of? Now, I think for all of us who are in the business, we're very comfortable with that. We know it's an environment where caregivers can get together and in confidence share their struggles. Many times when you suggest to a caregiver, oh, Amanda, you know what? I think a support group would be great for you. Mm-hmm. The immediate response is, I don't need a support group. I'm fine, because there's a connotation of what a support group is.
Right.
So one of the things that I think can be helpful is kind of reframing that to say, Amanda, would it be helpful to talk to other people who are kind of in the same situation as you, caring for your loved one?
Sure.
Guess what? Yeah. People want that. But I think at times when you think of support group, it's like, ooh, what's that? There's nothing wrong with me. Yeah. When in fact, wait, it's a misunderstanding. So I think support groups are great. Education is great. Many times people don't proactively seek out education about the disease until they're really in the midst of it. And then it's a pretty steep learning curve. We also have resources online. We have an online message board, which really isn't a support group, but it kind of is, mm-hmm. because it's an opportunity it's kind of that online community to be able to connect. And I think you can never underestimate the importance of talking to somebody who understands the situation you're in without having to explain it, without having to answer a lot of questions, without having to be second guessed. So I think that can be another one of all of the services that are provided. There's not just one thing that individuals who are living with the disease and their caregivers and family and friends kind of need all of us, because this is a significant issue. We've got over 6 million people, 6 million people in the United States who are living with this disease.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, that's a lot of people.
It is.
So we all need to really work together to be able to support those who need us.
Well, it is a glimmer of hope with this new mm-hmm. drug being approved by the FDA. So I thank you for bringing that information to us today. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for your time this morning. I think that we have a great summarization of the different types of opportunities that are available if you or a family member is suffering from any kind of cognitive decline. These ladies and gentlemen are here to assist. If you have any questions for our panel, please put them in the chat and we will make sure they get answered. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah.